Good evening to everyone present here tonight. My name is Vivian and I will be your host for tonight. On behalf of the JPO family, we'd like to extend a warm welcome to everyone tuning in for tonight's broadcast. We hope that everyone is doing well and staying safe indoors. A friendly reminder to maintain a good hygiene at all times and maintain social distancing when heading out. To anyone who is interested in sharing tonight's broadcast, a live feed is being shared on the JPO YouTube channel. If you have any questions you'd like to ask, please feel free to type them out in the Q&A section down below. A recording of the webinar will also be uploaded onto the channel. Tonight's seminar features Angela East with her topic being Evolutionary or Revolutionary. Angela East is a founder member of the exciting and innovative ensemble Red Priest that has performed worldwide for the last 23 years. This ensemble has provided her with opportunities as a soloist, and with Red Priest recordings, she has made 2 solo CDs, one of the Bach Cello Suites and the other Baroque Cello Illuminations. It's a collection of Baroque pedagogical works. For years, Angela played as continuous cellist with several of the foremost Baroque orchestras in London, such as the English Baroque Soloists, the Gabrieli Consort, and Players and the King's Consort. She was also the principal cellist in the very first performance on original instruments at Glyndebourne with Sir Simon Rattle. She has participated in over 200 recordings, including those of the Rolling Stones, Elton John, Led Zeppelin, and Eminem, and has written a book about playing the Baroque cello called Play Baroque. As our JPO family attendees are mostly students ranging from primary school to college, their parents and their teachers, the sharing of knowledge and advice you have for us, all of us, is invaluable and greatly appreciated. The JPO is very honored to have Angela East to join in as our guest for tonight. I hope that you will all join me in giving her a warm welcome. Without further ado, once again, a very good evening to Angela East. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Hi, Miss Angela. How are
Hello.
you?
Thank you very much. I'm very well, thank you.
All right. So, to start off tonight's interview, what can you tell us about the video we had just watched?
Well, the music was a flute concerto by Vivaldi called La Notte, which means night. And we made it quite full of nightmares, really, quite spooky and full of ghosts. And that's why we're dressed up. We have masks on, so you can't see our faces. And this was originally filmed by the BBC in London because they did a series of programs on channel BBC4, and we were one of the groups that they chose for that. So that's why the lighting is so very good in this video, because it was done professionally. And I think that this was put on YouTube by a promoter in California that we played for, and it was an advertisement for the concert that we gave there, which was in 2010, actually. It was quite a long time ago. So you can see that we don't just play the music straight. All of us, we have, I'm sure you noticed, we have recorder, violin, cello, and harpsichord in our group. And there's actually not a lot of music written for that combination. All of us had got a bit tired of the early music movement. I don't know how much you have of this early music movement in your country, but in the UK, it's been going for a very long time. And people are playing on the basis of rules. And so all the music gets to sound exactly the same. So we had been doing this. We played, with the rules for quite many years, really. And then we decided we'd like to do something a bit more exciting. So we take a piece of music, like a flute concerto, which is supposed to have an orchestra with it, and then we make arrangements of the music and make them more theatrical. So that is why you saw this performance of a normal piece by Vivaldi being turned into something that he might have intended, because it's meant to be about the night. But of course, we'll never know. And Vivaldi did write a lot of what we call program music, which is music with descriptions in it, like the four seasons. All through the four seasons he's written, this is the birds, you know, this is the storm, whatever it is, as he goes through the music. So you can tell what he's trying to describe with each bit of the music. So I think Vivaldi very much liked people to respond to all his descriptions.
Right, that must have been a wonderful experience. May I know what is your present job?
Well, my present job is playing with that ensemble. Now, of course, we haven't given any concerts for a very long time now, for over a year, because of COVID. We haven't been able to do that. We did make one film, which was put online, but it's not quite the same. But before that, it was a full-time job, and we've just played everywhere. We've played in Kuala Lumpur and, you know, everywhere all over the world, actually. And that is my present job. I do other things as well. I do teach, and I teach a thing called Alexander technique, which is not to do, well, not directly to do with music. But I don't actually play in any orchestras anymore. I used to do that, but not anymore.
I see. So could you kindly tell us about Red Priest and what it does? Okay.
Well, I did start to tell you about it because the whole point about Red Priest is that we offer something different from what you'd expect when you go to a concert. And that is to do with the arrangements that we make. Usually one person makes an arrangement, or sometimes with the four seasons, we all did it together. We all had the music in front of us. We take parts from the orchestral, just the orchestral library, and we play the music, and then we say, well, what could we do with this music to bring the original intention to life? And that's how we produce programs. We started off with a CD just called Priest on the Run, which had mixture of music, but then, as well as the four seasons, we've done a CD called Nightmare in Venice, which features the piece that you just heard and has many other pieces about fairies and witches and that sort of thing. We did one called Pirates of the Baroque, which had music about the sea in it. We did a program of Bach, and most people think, oh, Bach, you can't change Bach. But I'm afraid we did, and it worked extremely well. You know, we made Brandenburg 3 into a jazzy piece. And more recently, we had a change of violinist, and he was very good at gypsy music and folk music. So we've had a lot of that in the program. So we're not restricted by the notes on the page. We use our imaginations, really, to create something a bit different. And luckily, the audiences like it.
Right. So other than Red Priest, do you also play in other ensembles?
Well, I did used to, because Red Priest, it's now quite a big proportion of my life has been devoted to Red Priest. But the picture you see at the moment, that's a group called the Revolutionary Drawing Room. Our drawing room is like a sitting room. It's a place where in the 19th century, people used to play chamber music. So that just tells you that it's chamber music ensemble. And revolutionary means that the music came from the revolutionary years in Europe, which started with the French Revolution in 1789 and went on to about 1848. And in this picture you see now, we are playing at an art gallery called the Wallis Collection. You can see lots of different kinds of instruments there. And this was an educational concert about the French Revolution. I don't play in this group anymore. I did found the group myself, But I found that I couldn't do this and red priest. It had to be one or the other. So I stuck with red priest. But this was a big ensemble that I founded myself. And we played a lot of string quartets. We recorded string quartets of Boccherini and Donizetti. And we also played, lots of pieces with other instruments, as you can see here.
Okay, Miss Angela, I'm very curious. Can you please tell us about your cello?
Okay, well, I'm just going to move my chair, see what you can see. You can't because this needs to be tilted a bit more. I'll just put that down. Can you see now that I've got various instruments scattered all over the room? So what I will show you now, let's see, I think I need to put that down to show you, actually. I hope that's okay.
It's all right.
I have 5 instruments here. I couldn't get all of them out. So I'm not going to play my normal cello because I think you know what that looks like. I'm going to show you my Baroque cello first of all. So there we are. Can you see it all right? There's my Baroque cello. Now, this was made in 1725 by a British maker called Peter Walmsley. And I know this because the cello had a Dendrochronology Test. And that is a computer test where they put the instrument on a table like that, and they pass a sort of measuring machine over the top of the cello. And they measure the distances between the tree rings in the wood. And they keep all the statistics so that they can tell where did the wood come from, who made this cello, when was it made? And the front of this cello was made from a tree that was cut down in 1538. Wow. So that's amazing. People always ask me what happened to the tree between 1538 and 1725. Now, I'd better go back again because you can't see my face, but I will show you the difference, if you can see in the picture. The cello is set up differently, so it's actually softer than a normal cello. And the neck is less of an angle. On a modern cello, the neck would be sloping back like that. Because at the beginning of the 19th century, they wanted instruments to be louder so that you could play them in a big concert hall. And before that, they were playing in rooms, not halls. So at the beginning of the 19th century, all these instruments were changed. And so if you bent the neck backwards, you had a different angle on the neck. It wasn't bent, it was just a different angle. You also had to have a higher bridge, and all the pieces of wood inside the cello had to be bigger as well to support that. Now, they didn't have the end pin, no end pin. You just hold it with your legs like that. And the fingerboard is shorter because they only played down here. They didn't do much up here at all. So that's why it's different. Now, normally, the actual pitch is different too. But in Red Priest, we have to tune to the recorders because you can't change a wind instrument. So this is a normal tuning. Okay, now here's my bow. Shall I bring that bow a bit nearer? There. This is a modern reproduction, but it's the sort of bow they would have had then. And maybe you can see that the stick is slightly curved outwards, rather than modern bow is curved inwards. And when you play with a bow like this, it was very much favoured to play with down bows instead of up bows. So down bow is this direction. these notes are expressive, make shapes. And this note, this bow, up bow, is more of a neutral expression. And of course, this is very good for dance music, which is what you get in Baroque music. You get a lot of dances, and so you get some strong notes and some weak notes. In addition, all the strings are made of gut. Now, gut is sheep's intestine, and that's what they're made of. Gut strings have been around for a very long time. We've had metal strings only for a very short time, since about the 1960s, when people universally used metal strings. Metal strings, they're more convenient because they don't break and they don't go out of tune as much. But they're not as flexible, and so they don't make so much. You can do much more with shapes and different sounds when you have the gut strings. So if I just that's just an example for of what a Baroque cello will do. So
yes, sorry.
Do you have another question?
Yes. May I ask, how have you used your Baroque cello?
Oh, well, one of the best ways of using a Baroque cello is to play what we call continuo. And this means that when you play, sorry, I'll sit down so you can see me. There we are. When you play choral music, you know, Messiah or B minor Mass or one of these, you know, there's lots and lots of Baroque choral music. When you play choral music, you get the choruses, and then you have some solo singers, and the solo singers sing arias, and they also sing recitative. The recitative is where the story is being told. And so the cello, with various other instruments as well, gets to accompany the soloists in the arias and the recitatives. And these accompaniments are normally done by one cello, or maybe one double bass, one bassoon, you know, keyboard instruments. And in those days, they had lots and lots of players plucking, lots of, not just guitars, but lutes, the oboes, and lots of other instruments. You'd have to look that up. They normally had about 20 people actually in the continuo group, but the vast majority of them were people who plucked their instruments. So it's a great pleasure actually to play continuo with usually fabulous singers, because the soloists are very high quality musicians, and that is a great thing to do. And whatever music you play, even if you're playing a trio sonata, there's still that element of playing continuo. And in this style, you don't just play the notes, but you have to have a conversation with the notes, so that you listen to the violinist playing something, playing a tune, and everything you play on the cello is a response to the way that violinist is playing a tune. So it's like you have a conversation, and sometimes you disagree, sometimes you agree. It's quite a different form of music making, and that's why I really like playing Baroque cello.
All right. Other than Baroque cello, do you play any other historical instruments?
Yes, well, that's the pile of instruments you see behind me. So I will show them to you now. Now, these instruments, I can tell you they're not in tune, because when I'm not playing them, I turn the pegs down so that the strings don't break, because otherwise they break when you're not playing it. So I keep them down, and because I only decided to show them to you this morning, they're not in tune at the moment. I have tried to tune, but not particularly. Now, this one is a viol. There. And this instrument was played long before the cello was invented. It's quite different, actually, because you can see it's shaped like a pear. And it has 7 strings on this one. And they are tuned a bit like a guitar is tuned, actually, in fourths with a third in the middle. And at the top here, you have frets. Right, and because you've got 7 strings and all these frets, the tuning on a viol is really quite complicated. So you can see that you have 2 bits of gut that wind round the neck there, and I've split them. I've separated them because notes don't always go in tune in the same place. So sometimes you want a note higher, sometimes you want it lower. And because we play a lot of chords on this instrument, the tuning is slightly different. You put your fingers in slightly different places each time you play a different chord. And that's why I've split these frets. All right, this is the bow, which is held upside down, like that. And in fact, it's much better upside down because otherwise you'd hit all the other strings. So here, let's hit this. So I have to keep changing the angle of this to show it. But all of these instruments are without spike. See, it's very out of tune, but that's what it sounds like. And normally, normally that instrument would be played in a viol consort, which is a group of viols, all different kinds of viols. So you have a treble viol, an alto viol, tenor viol, bass viol, and they all play a bit like a string quartet, but with these viols instead. They play very early music. Now there's the bass violin. Let's put this back to show you the bass violin. This one, it looks very much like a cello, except that it's bigger, about that much bigger all the way round. And this is quite a small one. Now, bass violin is what they used in the 17th century. And the strings are tuned a tone lower. So you get G, C, F, and B flat. That's not too badly out of tune, but it still is out of tune. And so you have to transpose the music you play. But you'd expect to find this instrument in Monteverdi's music, in Purcell's music, in Lully's music, all these 17th century composers, and it played in a string band. So instead of having cellos and double basses, you just have the bass violin. You'd have about 6 bass violins playing together instead of what we do now. Okay, it's very similar. Sorry, I've got my bow. Where have I put it? So this is and so on. They all have that sort of guttish sort of sound. Okay, and then finally, this is my cello with 5 strings. And this is a cello that's needed for Bach's 6th Suite, which is why I bought it. It's extraordinary how we all buy instruments just for one piece of music, but it doesn't have to be one piece of music. You know, there are others that you could use with this. Now this, I don't know if you can see the size of it, but it's quite small really, compared, and if I hold up the other one, If I compare it, do you see it's quite a lot smaller
Yes.
than the bass violin?
Angela, you can continue first.
All right, okay. Sometimes they call this the piccolo cello because it was small. And it means that when you put 5 strings on this bridge, you have to be very careful not to hit all the other strings when you're playing. And so the 6th suite does not come out as I would expect, really, because I think of it as a key of celebration, D major, and I think it's going to be very celebratory, but it doesn't really sound like that because you have to use very little bow to avoid hitting the strings. And I really wonder if Bach realized that, because Bach actually commissioned a 5-string instrument when he was in Curtin. He commissioned it, and I just wonder if he knew at the time that it was going to be quite tricky playing that. So for my taste, I would have a bigger instrument than this to play with 5 strings. But anyway, please carry on.
Oh, so do all the different instruments give very distinctive tone and timbre?
Sorry, can you say that again?
Do all the different instruments give very distinctive tone and timbre?
Oh, right, yes. They all have the sound of gut about them, don't they? I mean, here's another one. Terribly out of tune, I'm afraid, but you can hear the gut sound in all of them. And when you change the pitch of the strings, it makes a big difference to the timbre. Because, if you tune low, it sort of sounds very low like that. And if you tune high, it's very bright. And all the composers from Baroque time, they lived in different towns, and each town, I think, tuned to the pitch of their organ, because they had to tune to the organ. So you get some music which is played with a very high pitch. So say an A might be a B flat by our standards, and some would play with a very low pitch so that the A would sound like an F sharp by our standards. So you've got quite a big variety there. And yeah, the change of pitch makes a big difference to the sound as well.
I see. Since we've been talking about the Baroque cello, do you also play normal cello?
Yes, I do. But I'll just put this one down.
Sure.
There, I can go back to normal now, so you can actually see me. Yes, I do play the normal cello because I don't know if you're going to play it at all, but I did record on YouTube. I did all of Aaron Minsky's 10 international cello etudes. And is it etudes or encores? I can't remember because he calls his pieces both those things. But he sent out this challenge during COVID to record one of his pieces, you see. So I thought I would do the whole book. And so I recorded all these pieces on YouTube. And because I did that, he recommended me to. So that was really a bit of fun, But yes, I mean, I trained as a modern cellist. And, I can still play the modern cello. It's just that, when the work is being divided out, people have to give you a label which says Angela is a Baroque cellist. But it doesn't mean you can't do other things. I like playing Kadai solo sonata or, any of the other solo pieces, a lot of solo pieces for the cello from the 20th century.
What about classical and romantic music? What are your perspective on it?
Oh, right. Well, this is where the evolutionary bit comes in, because after you have played a lot of Baroque music, and I must say it was one of the best educations was playing nothing but Baroque music for 10 years and not being allowed to use vibrato for 10 whole years. You really know then what it's for. You don't just go wobble, wobble like that. you know what it's for, because you haven't been allowed to use it for so long. And eventually all the Baroque orchestras started playing Mozart. They all wanted to record the Mozart operas. So then, you know, we had later instruments, we had different kinds of bows, and, you know, the style is completely different. So you learn another way of playing. So the technique has evolved from the Baroque to the classical. And if you follow that through, you get to Beethoven. You know, what did Beethoven do? And then you go into the Romantics. And when you read about how they actually played in the 19th century, it's so very interesting. Because they, you know, in the Baroque times, they used vibrato as an ornament. So it was like a trill. It would be on one note, you go like that, and that would be an ornament. But when you get later on in the 20th century, from about 1930, they used vibrato as a tool for improving the sound. So somewhere there's a changeover from the ornament to the sound. And there's nothing written down about it until 1880, which is so very late. You know, when you think all that came before it, Schumann, Brahms, according to the evidence available, it's as if they didn't use vibrato, maybe on some notes. I mean, there's always been some kind of vibrato because of the ornaments, but there's no evidence to show that they wanted to use it all the time to improve the sound. And that's just one example. So then, you know, you come into the 20th century and Fritz Kreisler was playing and he used lots of vibrato, and then everybody picked up on that and they all wanted to use it. So, yeah, I found it very interesting. And so I'm really interested in the evolution of technique.
So I'm curious, do many cellists in the UK play both Baroque and modern string instruments?
I think more of them do now than they used to. You know, because you remember I was talking a while ago about the way work is divided out and you had to have a label. At the time, you know, when the early music movement started, there was this big conflict really, because people playing early music were taking the work away from a lot of the other players who had been doing a lot of it before. And so you wouldn't get any work. You know, if you play both, you would only get work on one of them, which is really what happened to me. But I think now things have eased a bit more, and I think there are people who play both. But I don't like the idea of Baroque and modern, one or the other, because there are all those years in between where things changed. And so, you know, you need to go through the whole history of music and how they played at any given time in order to have a real understanding of it, I think. It takes a long time.
I see. As you may have heard, the Jesselton Philharmonic Orchestra has involved itself in a variety of activities. On behalf of the JPO, we would like to ask your views on the JPO and its activities. Additionally, how would you suggest the JPO and its members further improve itself?
Oh, well, I've only heard it online. And I think that what you're doing is absolutely marvelous. It looks fantastic, the different things that you do and the opportunities you're offering to so many people. I think it's absolutely wonderful. And, you know, in the UK, we're very much aware that things that are done in Southeast Asia are very much better than what we do. Very much better. So I can tell you things I would advise people in England to do. And whether this applies to you, I don't know. But you do have children playing in your orchestra, don't you?
Yes.
You do. And, you know, as a cellist, I'm very interested in the chair that I'm sitting on. If I'm comfortable, I can play properly. But if I'm uncomfortable, I can't think of anything else. So I don't know if you do this already, but either the children must bring their own stools, or you need to have stools and chairs in different sizes. Because certainly in England, I've seen so many little children trying to play on adult chairs that it's terrible, really. It's very bad for their postures. So, I mean, do you have different sized chairs?
Yes, apparently they bring their own stool as well.
They do. Well, that's marvelous. And then I would say don't play pieces that are too difficult, because I'm sure you get this all right already, but this is what they do wrong in England, that some of the conductors, they want to practice conducting all these fantastic pieces of music. And sometimes they choose pieces that are too difficult for the children because they want to play things that are just too difficult for them. I don't know what else. I'm sure that everything you do is wonderful.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's really difficult because I haven't seen it. I would love to see the orchestra. Come and invite me to see the orchestra. I would love to see it. And then
we'll do.
And then, yeah, then we'll see. But I mean, also the other thing is that I think children should not play in orchestras too soon. I know that some parents are very keen to get their children playing an orchestra when they're not ready. But do you have auditions in your orchestra?
Yes, we do.
You do. So, I mean, you would know when they're ready. So I don't think I've really given you much advice anyway, have I? Because I'm just telling you what goes wrong in my own country.
No, it's fine. All right, so let's move on to the Q&A. We have a question. Why did the bass violin fall out of fashion in later musical periods, and basses and cellos are more preferred?
Right, so I was looking at my chat column. There's a lot of stuff there, but this question wasn't in the chat column, was it?
Oh, this is in the answer in question icon box.
It's in the Q&A, right?
Yes.
Oh, right. Why did the bass violin fall out of fashion? Right, okay. Well, first of all, I think they had trouble playing with it because it's bigger and you have to stretch your fingers a lot more. And so at the beginning of the 18th century, all the instruments were cut down. Even Stradivarius instruments were cut down. Oh. Yeah, because they were too big to play. So they made them smaller. And that is the reason. I mean, it's really quite a struggle to play it, and to play in tune, you know, when your fingers are all stretched out like that is quite difficult.
I see. Another one. Hi. Are required techniques for playing period instruments very different as compared to that of the present cello, or is it just a matter of different interpretations?
Right, that's a great question, because yes, the techniques are different. That's why it's interesting. You know, if you play one way, if you play the same way all the time, the music will come out exactly the same, but there won't be a distinct difference between one lot of music and another. So that is part of the interpretation. I think that with early music, the fingerings and the bowings are much more significant in the interpretation. You know, when I'm teaching, you know, I'm quite strict with my pupils that they have to do the bowing and fingering that I've given them, although they're welcome to suggest something they think is better. And I can always tell them why I think that's better or this is better. I can always say, but it's much, yes, the bowing and fingering give you a lot of interpretation. I mean, I could write a book to answer that question, really, but that's the quick answer.
Okay. Miss Angela, are all the members of Red Priest still the same people from the time you all started? And why the name of Red Priest?
Right, okay. Well, Red Priest was the nickname given to Vivaldi because he had red hair and his father wanted him to be a priest. Now, I don't know how long he was a priest for, but every time he started a job as a priest, he went away to play his violin. And so they didn't employ him anymore. They said, we're not going to employ you as a priest because you're never here. And so they went away, and then they had to ask him back again because he was the only one who could play the violin well. So he sort of swapped between being a priest and a violinist. I don't think he wanted to be a priest, but that's what his father wanted for him. Now, that's why we chose the name, because we knew we would play a lot of Vivaldi. Now, we've been going actually in, I think, next February, it will be 25 years. So I shouldn't have put 23 in my short biography. It should have been 24. It will be 25 years old next February. And when we started, we had Julia Bishop on the violin, who was playing in the video that you saw. But when you saw the picture of the Gypsy Caravan, you saw Adam Summerhays. And he has been playing with us 3 or 4 years because of ill health. Julia wasn't well, and so we had to change then. The harpsichordist, we have changed because unfortunately the first one actually died. And so we had to. And we now play with David Wright. So it's not exactly the same, but I think given that we've been together for 25 years, we haven't changed that many players.
I see. Right, so last question. Hi, Angela, you were saying during the Baroque period, there were more people playing the continuo part. May I know why they reduced the number of musicians playing it nowadays?
Well, I think this was just a change in the history of music and the way the pieces were composed, because continuo playing is very characteristic of the Baroque period. But by the time you get to Mozart, I mean, Mozart does have a continuo line in his operas, but it's usually just played by the harpsichord. And then, then they were writing symphonies, and they weren't really interested in separating the role of the bass line out. It all became one thing when they were writing symphonies. So I think that's just a stylistic thing that went with the age of Baroque music.
All right. Thank you so much for your responses. Sorry, everyone, but we are coming to the end of tonight's broadcast. We would like to remind everyone that our GPO family program will be broadcasted twice a week until further notice. More details can be found on our Facebook page. A video recording of tonight's broadcast will also be available on the YouTube channel along with past webinars and the soon-to-be broadcasted interviews. So feel free to share the Zoom webinar registration link, JPO YouTube channel, and the JPO Facebook page with your friends and family. For our YouTube audience, if you are enjoying our program, please show your support by pressing the like and subscribe button down below. You guys have been an amazing audience. We from the JPO family wishes that everyone stays safe and healthy as we face this crisis together. I will lead the prayer to end tonight's program. Please pray in whatever faith you believe in regarding the COVID-19 pandemic. We pray that everyone in the world continues to stay strong in surviving through these difficult times and that a solution to the virus will soon be found. We pray that the governments across the world will continue to improve upon their efforts and decision-making so as to protect their people and curb the spread of the virus. We pray for the safety and well-being of everyone working as we edge closer as we face the new surges of cases. We pray for the continued safety and morale of the frontliners who are risking their lives so that they may continue to provide for those in need. Thank you everyone for tuning in, and thank you again, Angela, for taking your time. It is an honor to have you as our guest speaker. Have a great day and see you all next time. Thank
Lovely.
you.
Thank you very much. It was great.